कराची में सदर मुमलिकत 19वीं ITCN एशिया इंटरनेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस से खिताब कर रहे हैं, आइए आपसे शेयर करते हैं।
I must congratulate the Federal Minister for having organized such a nice conference. The youth are there, and he mentions the fact that for the last 3 days the participation has been tremendous around. Very important. If we want to make progress in a certain field, it is necessary to create a buzz in society, to create a buzz at the level of the leadership of the government, to create a buzz at the level of the entrepreneurs, and to create an excitement among the youngsters and the people who are going through colleges and trainings, whereby they are trying to look for professions and areas where there would be opening and there would be a future. My grandson is at that stage where he is thinking of which profession he will take. His father is a dentist, his grandfather is a dentist standing in front of you, and his great-grandfather was a dentist. So there's a good chance that he'll go into dentistry, and in fact, he went to the United States recently and they visited my old alma mater in San Francisco. But at the same time, I have been feeding books, the jobs of the future, the industries of the future. I forget the author's name, in which the future professions are distinctly dissimilar with the current ones. What is happening is that when knowledge was limited, Aristotle and the philosophers of the earlier times were astronomers, they were healers, they were philosophers, they were mathematicians. But as knowledge started to increase by good amounts, specializations came in. Today, knowledge and data is so huge that it is beyond any person's comprehension. And a lot of professions will change and are changing already. Some professions will not be there tomorrow. But at the same time, there is a good debate going on whether this change, the artificial intelligence, etc., will reduce the jobs or create different kinds of jobs. I feel today, my opinion is that more jobs will start opening tomorrow. So the responsibility of the leadership and of the academia is to create enthusiasm in those who are going to come. At the same time, if we want that to be a business, if we want that to be a country philosophy, if we want to learn from other countries, gain upon our experience, adopt experiments and experiences of different countries who have been successful, and as Tanya, you mentioned some of them, it is necessary that we should have a dynamic understanding of the same thing. And I am proud of the fact that Khalid Maqbool Siddiqui Sahab is here, who understands the importance of this field. And let me tell him, if I would not have been made the president, I would have loved to be in your shoes. In fact, in our discussion with the Prime Minister before he forced it upon me, was one of this discussion that if anything I'd like to do, I'd do it here. Why I would do it here? Because I wrote my first thesis at the University of Michigan, and I paid $1.50. That in those days $1.50 was a lot. I paid $1.50 per page to a secretary to type it. By the time I came to my second thesis, master's thesis was in San Francisco in 82 and 83, and I thought that is too much and I need to be able to write, change my words and so frequently. So I bought my first computer in 1983, which was an Apple IIe, and it had those floppy disks, you remember, with probably 64 bytes of possibility of storage, etc. And those floppy disks, I had 2 of them, and you could move them around, and there was the first word processing platform was Apple Writer. And I wrote my thesis actually on Apple Writer. Since then, I've always had access to a personal computer all my life. In fact, now, since 83 I've had that, and then in 2013 I get elected to the National Assembly. And lo and behold, I don't work on papers, I don't write on paper, I write on my computer all the time, and I take this my slim laptop into the assembly, and the speaker actually comes down from his rostrum and he tells me this is illegal. I can't bring the computer into the assembly. And I had to struggle for 6 months to get the rules changed so I could take my computer inside the assembly. So the first time the computer was taken inside the assembly was by my efforts. But these are just expressing my interest in this. But Mr. Minister, very nicely you talked about 3 very important issues. One was the excitement around. Number 2 was the fact that we must encourage investment in this sector. And the third, which pertains to you and me, is the fact that we want to have ease of doing business. Now, things are expanding beyond our comprehension, and that is why people are afraid that all these sciences will take over. They have already taken over. They have gone beyond human intellect. The limitation, in my mind, of information and the ability to retain that and to be able to discard old information and to be able to get new information happens all the time in my mind. I was really surprised when I used to study for higher sciences in my professional career that whatever I read I could not remember, and when the exams were closed I realized that the first reading retention in my mind was about 30 or 40%, of course maybe 80% in ideas, and then the second reading improved that retention, and the third reading further improved that retention, and as soon as the paper was over, what happened was most of the things were lost, were removed from my memory. So there was an active thing which was happening at the neuronal level. There was a house cleaning going on, there was a prioritization going on. For example, all of you sitting here, if I ask you what clothes you wore 3 days ago, you may not remember. What happened was, but you may remember the clothes you wore yesterday. So what happens was, when we go to sleep, or happens is that when we go to sleep, the brain does house cleaning. It reinforces with electrical signals certain memories which are important and disengages from memories which are not important. It's a regular house cleaning thing which happens in the human mind. That is a neuronal activity which the artificial intelligence and new computers studying deep situations in the deep mind, for example, are looking at these phenomena where judgments can be made. We make judgments based on our bias, based on our experience. But with that, experience and bias is limited compared to the hundreds of thousands of images being taken on the CCTV camera there. And it has happened in 2015, for example, and 2016. Around that time, these cameras and these machines took over. They were stronger than human intel to be able to recollect faces and to be able to identify faces. They went much beyond. So, where I talked about speech, similarly, there were imagery in which the biggest strength of the new change is happening, imagery, and the other big strength, of course, is about data. And the analysis of all that, if I would be a salesman, I would be looking at my customers. And I would remember the fact that this customer likes this customer likes to spend, this customer has certain preferences about things, but that is limited knowledge with a few customers who come to me. But today, if I am able to look up the data of that shop, for example, the 10-year past data, and have some intelligence, some people studying all that data, they will be able to give me much more ability to tailor myself to every customer. So this is where I believe there is hunger for data, and there is tremendous amounts of data. Only a few days ago I was reading about astronomy, that these new microscopes, telescopes, which are getting data, these companies and these government institutions believe that it may take us 5 or 6 years to be able to analyze the data which is coming through their telescopes today. Customer behavior, like I said today, the ability for banks are like just ledger houses, money going, money coming in, and the ability of the bank to judge a person how much of a loan to give him. and then if the loan has been given, the business is there, the customer comes back and says he needs more loans. Today, if there is an ability existing today, that if the customer or if the industry links its books to the bank itself, there should be an intelligent program to be able to assess the fact that what amount of security is existing, and this assessment can be made right away. So, modern programs, artificial intelligence regarding insurance risks and banking risks and lending risks are phenomenally increasing throughout the world. And where should Pakistan be? Therefore, I believe there are 4 pillars, very important thing which I want to mention to you. I believe there are 4 pillars where this whole thing can work. One is the abundance of data. And we have tremendous amounts of data. There are silos. We are kings of data as far as recognition, for example, of digits is concerned. All our people have gone through an identification CNIC, whereby we have given beyond our digital recognition. NADRA is aware of our links, the fact that what is my parentage, where have I lived, the fact that how many children do I have, and much more information is there. That's one silo. There is banking silo. Tremendous amount of data in the banking exchanges which is happening. There is telephone data, the calls are made, and probably in the last Economist or some other magazine, I read an article talking about how artificial intelligence was used to look at movement of terrorists, and probably it happened in about 2015 and 16, where now it is very difficult, humanly difficult to capture that. So where what happened was that people moving to certain areas, they were not tracked, but data was analyzed for that. Moving to certain areas, switching off their telephone for a day or two, switching it back on, then switching it off. There is no reason normally a person does that for a few days, unless these individuals were going into a terror-related area, and therefore it was easy to pick those people up.
सदर डॉक्टर आरिफ अलवी 19वीं ITCN कॉन्फ्रेंस से कराची में खिताब कर रहे थे। उनका कहना था कि आज के दौर में इल्म और तहकीक तेजी से तरक्की कर रहे हैं। क़यादत की जिम्मेदारी बनती है कि वो मौजूदा इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी के दौर में ज्यादा से ज्यादा फायदा उठा सकें। आप हमारे साथ रहे, आपका बहुत शुक्रिया।